SpaceX Falcon 9 is ready for launch, and we're bringing you all of the live action here on DXB Today.
Welcome. It's another special edition of DXB Today. 4 astronauts are buckled in aboard the SpaceX Falcon 9, ready to launch into space, and among them is Emirati astronaut Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi.
Yes, indeed. In about half an hour, T-minus 30 minutes, the SpaceX Crew 6 will attempt its second launch. The original launch was scheduled a few days ago to take off, but it was delayed due to a technical anomaly.
Yes, safety always comes first, of course, and the mission is now back on track and the world is watching. Dina, you were there at Mohammed bin Rashid Centre. What was it like?
Oh, it was incredible. You know, everybody was so serious and focused, and I was standing there in the middle, like really giddy with a huge smile. But to be there in the control room, and that's something I've only ever seen on TV shows and movies. And you know what? This is a big deal. Yes, we are the first Arab nation to ever head off on a long-duration mission to the International Space Station, but also the 11th country ever to do so, and the first non-ISS partner. And I think that is a huge accomplishment. So I am so proud of the UAE today. Way to go!
Yeah, and yes, you got a badge
you guys are just hating today. Everyone's so jealous.
I know, we all want that badge.
My souvenir from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Sorry, guys, I'll get you one next time.
Wonderful. So, our very own Dua is reporting live from Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Let's catch him.
Good morning, everyone. I am coming to you live from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, where the atmosphere is quiet, excitement and exhilaration as we anticipate Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi's imminent launch into the International Space Station, making him the first Arab national to be in space for a duration of 6 months and the longest Arab mission in history. The UAE is over here creating history, and we are all super excited. And as we all know, the launch was actually delayed from Monday due to technical difficulties, but we are given the go-ahead that everything is all great, and we anticipate his departure imminently. Let's all wish him a safe journey and a safe return back to the UAE.
Good luck to you, Dua. Kind of jealous, wish I could be there, but also so happy to be with you guys. Now, while I was at the MBR space station earlier this week, I met the manager of space operations, Mohammed Al-Balushi, to find out more about preparations for the launch. Let's take a look.
Basically, we are so excited about this mission. We have been working with our colleagues in NASA and even our team being there days and nights, and we are so excited for this mission.
Now tell me a little bit about the work that astronaut Sultan Al Neyadi will be doing up at the ISS.
So basically, Sultan Neyadi would be the mission specialist for the mission. His role is going to be basically conducting science experiments. He's even capable of doing the spacewalk for maintenance and operating the station, as well as the regular activities, educational activities that most of the astronauts are conducting on board the station.
Now, obviously, in preparation for this mission, he has done an extraordinary amount of training. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
So basically, Sultan Neyadi and Hazza Al-Mansouri both started their trainings at NASA in September 2020. So they spent almost more than 1,700 hours of training for basically a lot of science experiments, how to conduct and even how to operate the station using different facilities, and even using most of the payloads over there. So they all require a big amount of experience in order to operate the station.
Now, obviously, this is the second mission for the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. What did you learn from the first one that you are applying now and implementing into the second mission?
So basically, we have learned a lot. We learned that the international collaboration is the most important part of such missions. We learned that we are required to engage more students even for this mission, to inspire the future generation, and even to let them get excited about the space sector and getting their passion to work in such a sector.
Now, obviously, this is a massive day for the UAE, but also for Arabs everywhere, as this will be the first ever time that an Arab nation sends an astronaut on a long-duration mission to the ISS. How do you hope that this mission will, spread some of the Arab culture and traditions? How do you think you'll be representing us out there?
So, basically this going to consider as the first longest duration for the Arab astronauts. So we hope that in future a lot of Arab countries going to contribute to the scientific research and such space missions as well.
So exciting, Dina. So I know just then Dua mentioned just how tense and exhilarating and exciting it is being there at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Centre. What was your experience? Because you were there in the control room.
I was in the control room. And you know what? No other media was allowed, but I somehow made my way in. So hats off to Dubai One. But yeah, it was, to be there documenting something on such a historic day was incredible. And I've had the opportunity to interview both Hazza and Sultan in the past. And I think they are just so inspirational, remarkable, and great examples of the UAE to be representing us out there in the world. Everyone was obviously giddy. There was media from all over the region there. We're all packed into a room, and we were watching and waiting for the launch. Everyone had their phones out. People were calling their families. It's such a big moment for everyone, and for all Arabs especially, because who would have ever expected, the United Arab Emirates to be a pioneer when it comes to space travel and space explorations. And as a resident here, I have my Emirati boys, and Lane's like,
this is it. Well, no, I'm one of them as well.
So
this is something that we're all very, very excited about. Actually, people living here, it's like when we won the Expo.
Yes.
Like, people were so excited from all over the city. It was wonderful. It wasn't just local people. It was just like, wow, we won. A lot of people didn't know what it was.
I mean, this is our home. Yes.
This is our home. It's an amazing thing. But when you was in the actual centre, like, you managed to get in there, you got a badge to show it as well.
Oh, the badge.
We're bringing it back to the badge.
I saw Mohammed Abulushi had one as well. That was great. But what was it actually like inside there with the people, like the other people in there? What was it like, the other people in there as well?
Look, everyone was very focused, and it is very serious. And I'm sure you could tell that Diet was whispering in there, and so was I. So obviously, there is always a bit of anticipation, because you never know if there are going to be some unexpected delays, which on Monday's case, there actually was the case. I'm hoping today's going to go through, and everyone has their fingers crossed and is very, very hopeful. So best of luck to us all.
Yeah, it was so exciting to see you there in the control room. I loved it. So let's take a quick break now, and we will be back with two special guests to help us cover the SpaceX launch. So don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, and to guide us through the ins and outs of today's space launch, we've got Dr. Aquib Moin back with us. He is the Associate Professor of Astronomy and Space Science at UAE University. Thank you so much for joining us again, Dr. Moin.
It's a pleasure to be here, Nina.
We're very excited to have you.
And also back with us for the launch is Captain Hamish Harding. He went to space last year as part of the Blue Origin mission. Welcome back to the show, Captain. How are you?
Thank you very much. Very well, thank you.
Gentlemen, I just have to say, you guys had an I enjoyed you. My father was telling me how much he enjoyed you. Everyone was just like exhilarated by the amount of information at hand. Now, first things first that we need to talk about is what happened last time around. What information have we received since Monday's episode?
Well, it was the last minute abort of the mission at 2 minutes before takeoff. That is really last minute. But it was the ignition fluid that caused the problems. There were some indications that were not right. It's very exciting ignition fluid. It's pyrophoric, and so that means it ignites spontaneously with air. The reason they use that as opposed to spark plugs is so that you can relight in supersonic speeds later. but it can be very volatile. So they had a problem with temperature or leakage or something at the last minute. They haven't announced it. But hopefully it won't happen today.
So, Captain Hamish, is this something normal that will happen when you're doing a launch like this?
Rockets are still rocket science, and so they do go wrong sometimes. There are a lot more safety procedures now. There are abort mechanisms. If it went horribly wrong on the launch pad, the capsule would abort. It would eject like an F-16 fighter jet pilot would eject, and it'll go up and then come down on a parachute. So there's a lot more escape mechanisms now, both on the launch pad when the fuel is loaded and during the ascent. So astronauts have a much better survival chance, even in the unlikely event rockets do blow up every sort of 1-2% of time. But the astronauts should survive that sort of thing nowadays, which they didn't in the old days.
What's very interesting about what happened the last time is that so as Captain Harding mentioned that there was a problem with the fuel, so they were not actually able to get the data which confirms that the first stage is getting the right amount of fuel loaded into the system for the launch. So I hope that it goes much smoother today and we witness a launch.
Oh, we're feeling very secure and confident. We're going to be celebrating by the end of this show. Now, both of you, I could ask, tell me about the sort of preparations that are underway today for today's launch. What are we looking at right now?
Well, they would have gone back into the same sequence as before. So even though they had a 3-day delay, they would have gone back into probably T-2, T-1 day, and then gone through the same procedure, getting ready for the launch. So it would have been exactly the same as they got ready last time. And it's such a detailed procedure, they would have been just going through the process. I don't think they'll be thinking much about whether it aborts or not again. Very unlikely a second time.
And we saw that Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi was reunited with his kids. Now, is he back in quarantine? Are they with him? What's the deal there?
He's very lucky because they've given him some of his family to stay in quarantine with him. So you're either inside the bubble or outside, and they've given him, I saw at least two children of his inside the bubble on TV. Yeah. So that is lovely for him to have some family with him for this extended period now. But he's away from them all now for 6 months. That is going to be quite a trauma with small young family. How would you manage with your 2 young ones?
Well, but this is it. As parents, this is the thing. You know what I mean? Like what's going through their minds at the moment. So you've had an extensive experience of this. So what was going through your mind, and what do you think is going through their minds at this moment?
I'm sure they're thinking about the mission. I mean, I hate to say it, but I wasn't thinking about my family much. Yeah. I was thinking about the mission when we launched. It's so exciting. It's such an amazing experience, and you're trying to make sure you don't miss something you're supposed to do.
So any chance of taking selfies up there and things like that? Are people doing that sort of thing?
Not really. There's no devices allowed and there's no mobile networks, so that was actually the most traumatic bit for me. I've never been that far away from my mobile phone since this century. Going over 100 kilometres away from my mobile phone was something I just don't do normally.
Yeah.
So in the past 2 days, what will they have been doing to prepare for this mission, like specifically?
There's a standard procedure in the last few days of what people would be doing, and they would just go through that process again to get ready. And now it would be the second time, they'd be more ready this time.
Okay.
So what about eating and drinking? How does that work? Are you allowed certain things, not allowed certain things? Certain meals work better for space missions, so they'd be on the right food. And now they're going to be in space station food, which is very different. But they've got 24 hours to get there now, so they're in the crew capsule for the next 24 hours or so as the orbits synchronise. This is an incredibly complex process to get 2 28,000 km/h objects to come together smoothly.
I was just thinking about what you said. It was like that last meal that, it's like, did they have the burger and fries and the milkshake before they got on? All right, we'll be talking a lot more about preparations. There's still some time left till launch, but while we're waiting, let's hear from the UAE's top astronauts, one of whom is the first Emirati to go into space, and the other one is about to become the second.
I am at the UAE in Space event at the Museum of the Future, ahead of the Mohammed bin Rashid Centre's second mission into space, where this gentleman behind me, Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi, will be going to the International Space Station for a total of 6 months, making him the first Arab national to be in space for that long. I was very lucky to get a chance to catch up with both Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi and Major Hazza Al Mansouri ahead of their trip. Let's hear what they've got to say. Dr. Sultan, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm I'm a bit excited. Hopefully it's going to be a very successful mission. 6 months is not a short duration, but I feel ready. Hopefully it'll be a very successful mission.
Inshallah it will be. And Major Hazza, what advice do you have for your brother Dr. Sultan ahead of his mission?
So Sultan, from the get-go, from the beginning, he was there for me, supporting me in the first mission as a backup crew. I am today here in the backup crew, supporting him. So the big advice is to enjoy it and make sure that you enjoy the view from there, looking at Earth.
Spectacular view indeed. So how has the knowledge and the training accelerated from your first mission to Dr. Sultan's imminent mission? Has the knowledge that you gathered while you were in space really accelerated the training for you?
So basically, the first mission was a short mission, an 8 days mission. So after that preparation, we went to NASA, Houston, Johnson Space Center, where we took the full qualification for training for long duration missions. We trained on the robotics arm, the Canet arm. We trained underwater, MBL training, which is qualified us to do spacewalk. And what else we did, Sultan?
We did T-30 flying. I'm not a pilot. That's why I was envying Hazza being a pilot, but it was a piece of really interesting training to be able to fly and communicate with towers and being able to maneuver a very high-performance aircraft.
I hear you've got over 20 experiments for your time in space. Any that you're most excited about that you can tell us, of course?
What is exciting is me as a subject. So I'll be a subject to a lot of scientific experiments. They will monitor my sleep. They will monitor my hearing and vision and the cardiovascular. So all of these are subject to change in microgravity. So we do this before, during, and after the mission. So they want to do this test on us. I'm really excited to go back, land, and see what microgravity has an impact on me. So that is something I'm looking towards to see.
We all know that Major Hazza took on his trip balalit, saluna, madruba. What's on the menu for you?
Hopefully we can get an Emirati food over there, but we still haven't confirmed what sort of Emirati food.
I'm going to ask him something. What's your favorite one?
Yes, good question.
Well, if we have the possibility to take something, I would love to take my mother's cooking, but yeah, we can't.
We have to find a way. Both truly inspirational gentlemen that represent the limitless vision and ambitions of this great country. Please join us in wishing them a safe journey and a safe return back to the UAE.
Great bit of insight there from our two astronauts. Now, Captain Hamish, you have been into space. You are part of that exclusive group. What does it feel like to be up there amongst the stars?
Oh, space was amazing. I loved it. The things that I wasn't expecting was sort of looking up at the sun. Right next to the sun, it's black. Down here, we're used to blue skies, but that's only because of refraction of the light through the atmosphere. Once you get out of the atmosphere, the first 100,000 feet, above that, it's all black near the sun. So that was amazing. Looking down at the Earth, which is curved, it is definitely round.
We'd hope so.
It's a wonderful, wonderful theory that the Earth is flat. I love people trying to put that theory forward. It's actually wrong. The atmosphere looks amazing on the horizon. There's 100,000 feet of blue layer on the horizon. That's very beautiful. And the astronauts regularly say there's no borders you can see from space. So that's the impressive thing.
Wow.
And they'll enjoy floating around in zero-G. They've been trained in it.
So, in fact, what's the actual feeling of being in zero gravity? Because it can't be replicated, can it? Specifically, on land.
Well, you do train on the zero-G aircraft.
Yeah.
There's the 727 that Zero-G Corporation operates in the US. That actually goes in parabolic arcs, and parabolic arcs simulate zero-G, so you get 25 seconds of zero-G to practice, and you do it, say, 20 times in one flight. So we've all practiced that before we go to space. But the thing that surprised me about zero-G was how quiet it was, because in a 727 it's quite noisy.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, actually. It's very quiet when you get there. I've been skydiving, and that's the one thing that struck me. When you're up there, it's just silent, and you're just watching over everything. It's just beautiful. So that's what I always wanted to ask you. It must be so silent and surreal up there.
Yes, yes. I too am a keen skydiver, and free fall is great fun, but it's very noisy. Terminal velocity is very noisy on the ears. But in space, it's completely silent. You can just talk like this between each other in the capsule, because in the capsule you have air, of course. And so in space station, equally, you can just talk normally like this. It's very quiet. There's no motors running. This is after separation, of course, because while you're in the actual burn phase, where the stage 1 is burning, stage 2 later, that is very noisy, of course. You've got a huge rocket engine below you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Dr. Aquib, can you please explain what the different stages are that will happen on this mission and on the launch as well?
I think so. It all begins with something called a launch sequence, right? So you have a whole routine of things that happens, and as Captain Harding was mentioning, that that is something that will come back and that will be repeated. And then once you are getting close to the ignition, the first stage of the rocket will burn. It's a 3-stage launcher, so the first stage will burn, and it will push you all the way up to a certain point. And after that, you have the second stage. The first stage in these modern rockets, they actually return back. That was not the case earlier. Now you can actually recover the first stage, and the second stage is basically lost. And then what is most challenging and exciting is that the Dragon capsule would then have to match up the speed of the ISS as it is cruising around the Earth around 17,500 miles per hour, right? And then as soon as they come into sync with each other, what comes next is something called the docking sequence. Then the Dragon module will have to, they have to be very crafty in making sure that these two things come together, and we have all seen in the movies. So that happens for real for those guys. And once the docking is successful, I'm kind of demonstrating it with my hands, really.
We're seeing it. We're picturing it.
Yeah. I'm doing it involuntarily.
It's great job.
So it goes like this, and then once the docking completes, they lock with each other, and that is the time when the astronauts are welcomed by the existing staff. I believe there are 7 members already on board right now, and they're welcomed by them. And then that is the beginning of their experience on board the ISS. And for a 6-month-long period, there is a whole schedule of experiments. I heard that there are over 200 experiments that are going to be conducted for the time that they're there.
And Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi is the flight engineer, from my understanding, so he'll be conducting 20 different experiments.
Mission specialist.
Mission specialist. So tell me a little bit about some of those experiences and the information that he's going to be bringing back to us. How does it affect the general public like us? How can someone like me benefit?
Yeah. So I think that that actually excites me much more, because we're talking about science experiments that cannot be really conducted on Earth. You can try to get closer to them, but what happens to a human body when you are in microgravity and you are in a constant free fall? Actually, it's not zero gravity is actually sort of a little bit misleading. It's actually microgravity. The gravity is weaker, but then you are in a constant free fall. So your bones and muscles, they do not function as they would when you are on Earth, right? So you need to see how that could affect a human body. For example, one thing that happens is that your bones start to lose mineral density, right? And
unbelievable. These are not things that occur.
You don't want that. And your muscles, they're not being worked out as you would use them under the influence of gravity. So, but I think the one thing that will be coming back from that is that you can try to understand the anatomical and physiological processes better. So you might want use that input for better medical treatments. Right. The other kind of experiments that they do, they're on microorganisms living on your body. Right. So you don't really know what happens to them. They might mutate into something else. We don't know. And then there are a lot of experiments on plants and other life forms. For example, they try to grow some stuff there and see how it evolves and how it grows in the zero gravity. So I think that, and this is something that I emphasized earlier on, that what is more important is what happens after these experiments have been conducted. What comes back to Earth, and what is something that plugs in to our pursuit of knowledge that can eventually be of benefit to mankind in as a whole. And as Captain Harding was mentioning, that when you look at Earth from space, we are all just Earthlings. We are nothing more than that and nothing less than that. We are just Earthlings living on this sphere hanging in space. and we can just try to see that, how can we collectively enhance our knowledge. And for example, you see these aircrafts flying all over. There was someone who looked at a bird flying. So who would have thought that you would be having these aircraft flying all over? So I'll be very excited to see that how that propels the humankind forward, and how those benefits will come back to us, and that will eventually improve our lives and and help us understand what is the meaning of our place in the universe.
Brilliant. So when it comes to like special materials as well, so is there any specific special materials that are used in zero gravity?
Materials, I think things are, if you are talking about, let's say, food stuff, or if you're talking about experiments that are conducted, so there's specialized equipment on board the ISS. And then in some cases, there are some experiments which are taken along with the astronauts. And so as we mentioned, that things do not operate as they would on Earth. So it's designed to conduct experiments when you have things which are not subject to gravity.
Yeah.
So, and yes.
Because we talked about that. You think about things like spacewalk simulations, but then we don't think about how hard is it going to be to sleep or brush your teeth.
Brushing your teeth,
or shower, clean yourself. What are the day-to-day tasks that they struggle with that I think most of us wouldn't even occur to someone like myself?
Well, I've talked to quite a few friends who've been to the ISS before, and they say that for the first week you're quite discombobulated. It's quite hard to sleep in zero-G when you're not used to it. You're in a sleeping bag, you can strap yourself down, but you're not lying on a bed. And the body just doesn't behave quite the same and doesn't sleep as well. So it takes about a week typically, apparently, to get used to the whole thing and get back to normal. But luckily, Dr. Sultan has 6 months there to do a lot of experiments. So he's in a good position to get used to it.
Absolutely.
Okay then, right, it's time for a quick break, but don't go anywhere, because when we get back, we're going to be bringing you live coverage of the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch into space.
Welcome back. Now we're just minutes away from takeoff. Gentlemen, what is going through the astronauts' minds right now? Are they nervous? Are they excited? Are they worried about saying goodbye to their families? Well, you can tell us based on your experience.
I would think they would be absolutely excited. This is the most amazing moment in their lives. To launch into space is fantastic, and what they're doing is even more incredible, leading the way for the Arab world. 6 months in space, we've really made it as a country. There are still only about 10 countries who've actually had astronauts do that kind of thing.
Now, what are we actually seeing on screen right now?
This is the last few minutes of countdown. We're less than 5 minutes away from launch now. The fuel has all been loaded. The ignition sequence is being prepared. It's going into auto launch mode now. So
and this is obviously all happening at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
The computers are taking over now. They will detect a problem, automatically abort if there is a problem.
So did you take off from there?
No, we actually took off from Texas. There's a Blue Origin launch area in Texas, which is actually part of Jeff Bezos's ranch. It's a nice open area, so that if there was any unexpected things, you'd come down in a private area, not on a city or something.
Now, since it's in view, if I can ask you both, gentlemen, talk us through the bits and pieces here. I'm just familiarizing myself. We've got the Falcon 9, which is the actual rocket, and then from it, the capsule, right? And that's the Dragon. And this is the Endeavour.
The name of this particular Crew Dragon is called Endeavour.
Okay.
There are multiple Crew Dragons, but that is the type of module. So the astronauts are in the Crew Dragon at the top. That's what will dock on the ISS tomorrow. The stage below is the stage 2, which is the second burn that gets them into orbit, and the run at the bottom, the big one with all the fuel and the 9 rocket motors, is stage 1. So stage 1 will get them out of the atmosphere, and then will separate. Stage 2 will get them into orbit and then separate, and then finally the small Crew Dragon at the top will dock on the ISS tomorrow.
Now, am I correct in saying it's called Falcon 9 because it's got 9 engines?
That is right.
I'm very excited about this knowledge that I've attained over the
You've
last
been doing your research, Dina.
One of Elon's little jokes was the Falcon is named after the Millennium Falcon in Star Trek.
Star Wars.
Star Wars,
yes,
sorry.
yeah.
Oh, don't mess with the Star Wars.
I'm a Star Wars geek
over here.
That's right.
So we keep seeing on screen the astronauts there, and they're all buckled in. How long will they have been sat there waiting before they actually go for the takeoff?
I think they're in for a couple of hours beforehand.
Oh, really?
To get ready. It's quite a serious launch sequence. They need to be in place, and the fuel is then loaded.
Okay, and what do you think will be going through their minds right now? You know, they're going to be anticipating the countdown. Is it nerves? Is it excitement? What do you think they're feeling?
Well, there's so much work to do, preparing for things, monitoring the screens. There's a lot more screens on this rocket. It's a glass cockpit, effectively, like a modern jet. So above their heads in the capsule, there are glass screens. You can't quite see it on the screen, but they're looking at a lot of displays of what's going on.
Okay.
So I think, yes, please.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask your opinion on whether you would actually go to space or not.
Oh, absolutely, I will.
He's like, sign me up today.
Sign me up today. I mean, I think so part of what they're going through right now, it's excitement to go into space, but then there's an element of nervousness and also a little bit of anxiety as to how this will go. But again, the ability to be able to go beyond this planet and kind of see yourself as part of something. I mean, because what I always this is something I start off most of my lectures with, right? So what we currently understand and what we can imagine is based on our common experience of living on Earth, right? So we are familiar with cities and mountains and valleys and rivers and oceans and people, right? But the meaning of existence. But I think this is something that the most profound experience that astronauts would have. That the meaning of what we are is something.
Oh, here we go.
Here
we go. Look,
this is it.
This is the moment we've been waiting
this is
for.
absolutely
Unbelievable.
fantastic.
Incredible. Wow. Oh, so Captain Hamish, what is happening inside there now?
There's a lot of G-force. It's going through 2G probably at this moment.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Incredible.
It's accelerating, probably going towards the speed of sound shortly. It'll go to many times the speed of sound. Oh, there we have the speed. Yes, it's heading towards the speed of sound at the moment. Mach 1.
There they go.
The first stage is pushing it out of the Earth's atmosphere and achieving the escape velocity. That is the minimum velocity required for them to break out of the Earth's atmosphere.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing history right about now. The SpaceX Crew 6 is now on its ascent to space. A remarkable feat, undeterred by any setbacks. We've sent an inspiring group of astronauts to space yet again.
Alf Mabruk to the UAE.
Yes,
establishing itself as a space pioneer in the region. And then also, of course, to Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi, who is, increasingly becoming known as Sultan of Space. He's really just established himself as a, role model to youth, to Arabs, as an ambassador for space exploration.
This is really a big day, all the youngsters and students, the inspiration and the motivation that they will get from it. And what could happen beyond this is really, really high potential and promising.
So for how long will we be able to see them, going up into the sky? Will we be able to see it right until they reach?
I guess we will see that all the way up to the point where they leave the atmosphere.
Okay.
And beyond that, they would no longer visible to us. And the second stage.
And how many minutes is that? Sorry, if I can just ask you.
I think that would just be a few minutes.
Remember you saying it takes a few minutes.
Stage 1 is only going to burn for about 3 minutes. We're already faster than Concorde vertically at the moment. We're heading towards Mach 3 and fairly soon the main engines will cut off and then stage 1 will separate and then stage 2 will continue the burn up to about 10 minutes after launch. By then, they're fully in orbit, heading out towards the space station.
And what we'll see is the first stage actually detaching from the second stage and coming back, and which is something that can be recovered.
We've got some great footage here. I mean, when you think about the first space missions, we just didn't have
there you go. You hear the applause there. Everyone's celebrating. Unbelievable.
This is a very important part. They've ignited second stage. That was a key thing. So the key things have now happened. Main engine has separated. second stage has ignited successfully. They're in the second stage burn now, right up to about 10 minutes. It's looking very, very successful now. The main points have gone past now. This is really looking very, very good.
We're in the safety zone now.
Not completely, but it's
tell
looking
me
good.
that I can put my mind at ease.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the audience here, like we're witnessing this. We're witnessing this together as well.
History in the making.
How are you all feeling? I'm feeling really I don't know. I'm feeling overwhelmed and excited and emotional.
Yeah.
Like, how are you feeling about this? Emotional?
It's amazing what UAE achieves. I've lived here for 30 years now. This is my country. I've been a long-term resident here. It's so feel so proud to be a part of this. UAE is doing everything. Only about 10 countries have done this kind of thing at all. And UAE has come along and is really catching up very fast with the major nations.
Always keeping us on our toes. Now, a couple of questions first. What updates are we expecting? Over the next 6 months, obviously, we'll be updating audiences as we hear back from Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi. But when do we expect them to arrive at the International Space Station?
I think they would start to attempt docking in the next 24 hours or so. And once the docking is complete, then, as we mentioned earlier, they will be welcomed by the astronauts. And as Captain Harding was mentioning, that they will take some time to kind of like orient themselves in the environment they are. And then I think as soon as they are kind of, they settle down and then they start off the sequence of experiments. But I think part of Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi's plan is to do a lot of outreach from there as well. So I think he'll be talking to a number of schools and he will be interacting with people from there. So I think the most powerful thing is that we will get a constant update on what's going on there, what kind of results he's producing. And 6-month period is long enough for him to be able to do something the results of which can be witnessed by him as well, because the cycle time is much longer. And I think we will get constant updates from them as he's there.
I mean, when Hazal Mansouri went up for the first mission, he was only up there, what was it, 7-8 days?
It was 8 days. He
really didn't get a chance.
No, he went up on the Soyuz mission, which is it's like older technology. It's very competent, but it's Russian older technology. It was there in the 90s. That mission was only 8 days on the ISS. This one is so much longer, and it's actually ideal placement of astronauts because the first one was an F-16 pilot, so he was all ready for the first mission. And Dr. Sultan is a PhD student, or PhD, he gained his PhD, and so he's ideally suited to experiments over 6 months because it's a much longer process. And it's also a lot of maintenance work on the ISS. This 23-year-old ship up there, there's a lot of maintenance work, so they're constantly doing work. They might even do a spacewalk for him. That would be amazing if it's achieved.
So they're actually part of a number of different kind of activities. So one thing that they can do is there are experiments which are testing something as a function of time, right? So you want to see something's behavior changing, so you want to do that over some period of time. So an 8-day mission would not be enough for them. So for example, they have a sample of bacteria and they want to see how that bacteria would evolve in microgravity. You want to check that out every single day until, let's say, for over a month or something. But as Captain Harding was mentioning rightly, that they would also be a part of extensive maintenance and also possibly EVA, which is the extravehicular activity. So they will have their hands full while they're there, and they have enough time to be a part of all what's going on board the ISS.
So it's a full-on schedule, like a work schedule. So on Monday, you're going to be doing this at 10 o'clock, and so on and so forth.
You have a schedule, and that schedule is well designed, and that's why they're called mission specialists, and they're kind of more inclined towards scientific experimentation. So they do have like a work day as we would have on Earth, right?
Yeah.
Except that the up and down and right and left wouldn't matter as it matters here, right? So they would be upside down, accessing some piece of hardware without worrying about, how do I get there? So you might have seen these famous pictures of astronauts, or there was an astronaut, Christina Koch. So she was moving a 700 pounds equipment from point A to point B without skipping a beat, right? So it is a work schedule. They are at work, but again, the dynamics and the mechanism that they would follow and the things that they will be able to do, that would be much more different. And the outcomes is something that we should look for, that what it would mean for what the UAE would like to achieve as we go forward. Because, what we are proud of is that UAE got itself into the space domain, to the objectives and the I would say ambitions. They are to become a spacefaring nation. That it actually is launching satellites, participating in human spaceflight. But then, what scientific outcomes can come back to us, and then become a part of a knowledge-driven economy?
All right, thank you so much. We're going to be delving into this and a lot more right after the break. It has been a historic day that we will never forget. And we'll be back to talk about it all and all the excitements and continue the celebrations right after this break.
Welcome back. 4 astronauts, one of them trailblazing Emirati, have left the planet and now speeding through space. So we're all here super excited for today.
And this is it, like actually taking off. And we mentioned that you would definitely be up for it. Amy, would you be up for it?
I don't know. I mean, I've been watching and researching and seeing about the food and the exercise and everything, and I just don't think I could do it.
Dina, would you?
I'd be up to it if I could gain the courage to leave my kids behind. I cry when I leave them for a night sometimes.
And obviously, Captain HH, you've done it before as well. But a lot of private sector companies are doing the space tourism. And this has become a big thing now. So it's easier to go up there, isn't it, now?
It's getting easier. There's still a very limited number of people who've been up. It's just a couple of dozen who've been up commercially. So, but it will become much easier over the coming decade or so.
Sounds like someone's got a little bit of gossip to tell us. Come on, Captain Harding, give us the inside scoop.
Well, it's expensive today to do it, but it's going to become a lot cheaper. The reusable parts are getting cheaper. As I've said before, today it may cost the cost of a private jet. In the future, it may cost the cost of a sports car.
But how about it all going down here in the UAE? How likely is that?
I'm very close to a number of people, including the Blue Origin team that put me in space. I do hope that the Blue Origin team would maybe establish a spaceport here. I think there's a lot of scope for a second spaceport in the world. Their first one is in Texas, at Jeff Bezos' ranch. I don't see why the second one couldn't be in the UAE.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Sounds like
Dubai likes to be at the forefront when it comes to tourism, so I don't know why space tourism couldn't be another thing for them to take off on their list. Well, now we're going to go and join Dua, who is at Mohammed bin Rashid Space Centre. Dua, what's the atmosphere like there?
Hey there, everyone. We are coming from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, where the crew is in orbit. As we hear, Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi is in orbit. He has safely taken off to the International Space Center from Kennedy Space Station in Florida. Just moments before his successful departure, His Royal Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum has arrived to watch his launch. It is a joy of celebration over here. Is a celebratory mood of excitement, and our man is on his way to space, everyone. Back to you guys in the studio.
Done, Amazing. Okay, now talk to us, gentlemen, about the future of, the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, the space program here. What plans are in store?
I believe this is something that we were discussing. That what we're seeing right now is an overall boost in space activities around the world, and I always say that. It is no longer going to be that exclusive as it used to be, because it is becoming more and more accessible to scientists like us or people who are just ambitious to just travel for fun, for example. But what it means for the future of space exploration in the UAE, and this is an overall program I'm a part of. That the idea is that what you need to turn this into an activity which establishes as a proper sector in the UAE alongside all the other sectors. You have the tourism sector, you have the mining sector, and so forth.
Oh wow! Look, we've actually got images of them
from the
in
capsule.
Look at this.
Yeah. Amazing.
Amazing.
We are so privileged these days to have this sort of technology.
And access to them in these monumental moments.
That's what the advancement is doing. So we can see right into the cockpit, and we can even see the display that Captain Harding was talking about. it looks much more like a modern science fiction-y display, no longer those gauges and valves anymore.
And this is it. So you've got the Blue Origin. So obviously the big major players, you had Jeff Bezos, you had Richard Branson and Elon Musk doing the competitive nature to see who's got the best technology and so on and so forth. But what does it come down to when you want to explore space? Is it about the money or what is it?
Thank you. Well, it's the technology that's been developed now. Reusability is pretty amazing. Elon Musk is furthest forward at the moment. The Falcon 9 rocket has done so many launches now. It puts astronauts in ISS. It puts satellites up there. The Starlink satellite constellation is going up massively at the moment using these rockets. They're using cargo dragons for the satellites and crew dragons on the top for the astronauts.
It's magnificent.
Now, a little bit of a shift in conversation here, because when I was actually speaking to some of the representatives at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, something that they said they were prioritizing when it comes to space travel now, taking care of their astronauts and also incorporating that into their training, was them prioritizing their mental health, because that plays an important role in the success of these missions. So something that Dr. Sultan Al Neyadi said, that he was planning on bringing his jiu-jitsu uniform, that he was bringing up some of the local food, just something where he could kind of feel a piece of home and some of that regularity. What are some of the training, what are some of the regulations that they carry out to preserve their mental health and make sure they're at tip-top shape?
There's a treadmill up there which has elastic so that you can actually do running, because rather than gravity bringing you back to the treadmill, the elastic will do it. So you can actually exercise. You have to exercise all the time because you'll lose muscle mass so quickly if you're not exercising. But the problem is there are muscles that are very hard to exercise in the body that we do naturally every day under gravity. So they will lose muscle mass, they will lose bone density. That's part of the experiments every time on the astronauts. It's also why you see astronauts after a long duration mission, they're usually carried in chairs away from the capsule on the ground or in the water.
I was wondering why that happened. Okay.
Because they don't want the astronaut having to try and stand up under gravity for the first time and sort of fall over in an embarrassing way in front of the cameras. So they're carried away and they gradually get used to being back on Earth again once they're back. This mission, of course, will end in the sea, because the capsule will eventually, it'll be a different capsule probably, but it'll come back down in 6 months' time, land under 4 parachutes in the ocean.
And I think as soon as they're recovered from there, the astronauts, I mean, there is a process of rehabilitation where they are. I know that there is consultation with counselors, and so they are in sort of like that confined space and in sort of like isolation from everyone else. So there is a process of conditioning yourself in a way that you get back to normal life.
And the UAE is leading the way when it comes to these programs and experiments in this.
Yes, so that's the thing, that UAE, I mean, so when it was decided that UAE is going to go all into the space sector, and the most amazing thing that it didn't take that long. It was, I think, you can count those years on your fingers. I think 14, 15 years ago, it was decided that one of the national priorities is going to be building the space domain. So what was imagined right away is that means launching satellites, putting astronauts in space, but also designing and producing research programs and education programs that would actually boost that entire ecosystem.
Yeah, the programs are amazing. It's inspiring to see space programs around the world exploring new frontiers. But let's take a look at how much our own space program here in the UAE has really accomplished.
The people of the UAE dreamt big, and their ambitions launched them way beyond the skies and the stars, taking them beyond Earth's atmosphere. Their space project began over a decade ago, when a small team of Emirati engineers learned the necessary skills and acquired the knowledge to build and launch their own satellite into space. It was an extraordinary achievement for a small country. 24 Emirati engineers proudly witnessed Khalifa Sat fire off from Tanegashima in Japan in 2018. But this was just the beginning. In 2017, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum announced the first UAE astronaut program. Two finalists, Hazza Al Mansouri and Sultan Al Neyadi, were chosen to be the UAE's first astronauts from over 4,000 participants from around the country. Both astronauts were trained in Russia at the UN Gagarin space station. They went through vigorous training in extreme conditions, including the brutal Russian winter and working in a microgravity environment. On the 25th of September 2019, the father of four ordered the Suez M15 spacecraft in Baikonur in Kazakhstan. It was a nail-biting moment. The entire nation was glued to their screens, watching their beloved astronauts leave Earth and become nothing but a ball of fire flying into space. The first astronaut from the UAE docked then and reached the ISS, where Hazza Al Mansouri spent 8 days in microgravity doing a battery of experiments. Hazza made history and became the first Emirati astronaut to reach space. He was also the 240th visitor to the ISS, making the UAE the 90th country to be represented on the Space Lab. This was the pinnacle of the country's ambition. Hazza Al Mansouri represented his proud nation and taken his rightful place in space. The world applauded.
Goosebumps. We wish Dr. Al Neyadi and his crew all the best on their mission. We hope to see them return home safely, inshallah. Now, gentlemen, next 6 months we're expecting a lot of updates. What can we be looking forward to?
I'm hoping there'll be a lot of schools link-ups with our astronaut. I hope even Dubai College, where my son is studying, will actually get a chance to talk to him direct. There's no problem with doing a video link-up with him in space. That would be really exciting, especially as he flies over this part of the world.
I think that, you know, as it happened when the first ever UAE astronaut went on board the ISS, the universities and all of the other academic institutions, they try to kind of, you know, in some way relate to what this activity means, right? It means exploration of space, understanding about the objects and events in the outer space. So I think what we also did at the UAE University earlier is that we had these events where they were able to kind of interact with the astronauts when Hazza Al Mansouri came back. But then what we started to do is to include that even in the syllabus, and what we teach is that what does that mean? What kind of inspiration and motivation you should derive from that? How does it contribute to the overall mission and the vision of the country? And what could be your role in that? Because, you know, I think for me it's a collective responsibility to take this legacy beyond from this point and contribute in terms of not only learning all of what is coming back, but to take it forward from there. So these kind of activities we'll see in abundance after during the 6 months and beyond. I think that this is something, it is a way to get the best out of this kind of major initiative taken by the UAE government.
And what's the likelihood of an actual moonwalk?
A moonwalk, I think it's going to happen pretty soon. It's in 2020.
This decade there is a very good chance.
Good chance that there's
quite a lot of people walking on the moon again. Yeah. In fact, we're only a couple of years away from the next attempt.
Now, this mission was such a beautiful example of international cooperation, people from all over the world, you know, joining forces to make this happen. What kind of examples is setting for the rest of the world? Getting an Arab out there, sharing our traditions and cultures. What's going to be happening on that spacecraft over the next 6 months? All of them together from different parts of the world.
It's amazing that there is still wonderful international cooperation up there. The Russians and the Americans are quietly cooperating rather well still, despite everything on the ground. So this is how it should be on the ground, but at least we have space cooperation still going on.
Yes,
and I think the space exploration is one of those domains which specifically emphasize it and make you realize how important it is to actually come together. To do things, in a mutual interest of the mankind.
Come together.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Yeah. Thank you so much. And that's it from us right now. But don't forget to join us tonight for your daily dose of DXB Today. Bye for now.